Hello friends, most welcome to my YouTube channel and the crash course of psycholinguistics. So we have discussed a lot about psycholinguistics. In this video we will discuss about issues and language acquisition. You are often given in your course contents the topic issues and language acquisition. So what does it mean? The term issues is used to refer to the various questions and challenges that arise in the study of first language acquisition. These issues are important because they help to frame our understanding of the processes involved in language acquisition. The study of first language acquisition is a highly complex and multifaceted area of research, and there are many different issues that arise when we try to understand this process. These issues may involve questions about the underlying mechanisms of language acquisition, the role of social and environmental factors in language learning, and the different stages and milestones that children go through in the process of acquiring their first language. So, by examining these various issues, researchers can gain a deeper and more nuanced understanding of the first language acquisition. So in this tutorial we will discuss about 10 of the main issues in language acquisition. The first one is competence and performance. The second one is comprehension and production. The third one is nature or nurture. The fourth one is universals. The fifth one is systematicity and variability. The sixth one is language and thought. The seventh one is imitation. The eighth one is practice and frequency. The ninth one is input. And the last, the tenth, is discourse. Okay, the first, competence and performance. Competence is one's underlying knowledge of the system of a language, its rules of grammar, its vocabulary, all the pieces of a language, and how those pieces fit together. Performance is the actual production, speaking, writing, or the comprehension, listening, reading of linguistic events. Okay, the second, comprehension and production. In child language, most observational and research evidence points to the general superiority of comprehension over production. Children seem to understand more than they actually produce. Even adults understand more vocabulary than they ever use in speech and also perceive more syntactic variation than they actually produce. Okay, the third is nature or nurture. Nativists claim that a child is born with an innate knowledge of a willingness towards language, and that this innate property, the LAD, is universal in all human beings. Environmental factors cannot by any means be ignored. For years, psychologists and educators have been involved in the nature nurture controversy. Okay, the fourth one is universals. It is a controversial area of study. The claim that language is universally acquired in the same manner and that the deep structure of language at its deepest level may be common to all languages. Much of current universal grammar research is centered around what has come to be known as principles and parameters. Principles are invariable characteristics of human language that apply to all languages universally. Parameters are properties that individual languages have that differentiate them from other languages. Okay, number fifth is systematicity and variability. One of the assumptions of a good deal of current research on child language is the systematicity of the process of acquisition, from pivot grammar to 3 and 4 word utterances, and to full sentences of almost indeterminate length. Children exhibit a remarkable ability to infer the phonological, structural, lexical, and semantic system of language. Children acquire language in a systematic way, but in the midst of all this systematicity, there is an equally remarkable amount of variability in the process of learning. Okay, number 6 is language and thought. Piaget, 1972, gives an opposing position to Vygotsky. He claimed that cognitive development is at the very center of human organism and that language is dependent upon and springs from cognitive development. On the other side, according to Vygotsky, social interaction through language is prerequisite to cognitive development. Okay, classical theorists Plato and Aristotle argues that the categories of thought determine the categories of language. Another view was expressed by the behaviorist J.B. Watson. He is an American psychologist and he is also the founder of behaviorism. According to him, thought is language. According to him, when we think aloud, it is called speech, and when we speak covertly, it is called thinking. So, according to this view, the categories of thought are determined by linguistic categories. Theorists within this group are divided between those who think that language completely determines cognitive categories and those who merely say that language strongly influences cognitive categories. One of the champions of the position that language affects thought was Benjamin Worf and Edward Sapir. They formed a well known hypothesis called Sapir Whorf hypothesis. According to Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, language imposes on its speakers a particular world view. Okay, number 7 is imitation. It is a common informal observation that children are good imitators. So we might think that imitation is one of the important strategies a child uses in the acquisition of language. There are two types of imitation: surface structure imitation and deep structure imitation. In surface structure imitation, where a person repeats or mimics the surface strings attending to a phonological chord rather than a semantic chord. In deep structure imitation, a person concentrates on language as a meaningful and communicative tool. Okay, the eighth one is practice. Do children practice their language? If yes, so how? Brown and Hanlon 1970 found that the frequency of occurrence of a linguistic item in the speech of the mothers was a strong predictor of the order of emergence of those items in their children's speech. Like what? Like question, irregular past tense forms, certain common household items, and person. Number 9 is input. The role of input in child's language acquisition is undeniably crucial. What many researchers have shown is that in the long run, children will, after consistent, repeated models and minimal context, and eventually transfer correct forms to their own speech and thus correct past mistakes. Thus, if a child says that Harry and the parent says no, that's John, and the child might readily self-correct and say, oh, that's John. The tenth and the last one is Discourse. Burko Gleason in 1982 described the perspective. While it is used to be generally held that mere exposure to language is sufficient to set the child's language generating machinery in motion, it is now clear that for the successful acquisition of first language to take place, interaction rather than exposure is required. So this was all about the issues and first language acquisition. I discussed them in short, and if you want to study them in detail, you can watch the screen and read them. Thanks for watching the video. See you next time. Take care.